Everything that we do here at Byos starts with our secure edge technology. This is the hardware that gets deployed in front of your assets that cloaks your assets, making them invisible to the network. Basically, what we're doing is we're the hardened piece of communication interface between the asset and the rest of the network. We provide the route enforcement. We provide all the network security protections on the local network, both inbound and outbound, which we'll get to later, to isolate the assets from connecting to the network themselves, right? So if you think about a PLC controller plugged in directly to a switch on the network, now that controller is going to plug into Byos, and Byos Secure Edge is what's going to connect to the network on behalf of the asset. What we do then is we pair it with a cloud managed control plane. Now, this control plane is what lets you as the administrator or the IT person to push policies and manage these edges from a central place, right? Edges will get activated. They'll receive the policy from our control plane. That policy will have been established by the administrator, and then all edges that go into that policy group will receive the same policy set. Then within the policy set is determined how that edge routes to the outside world. And the third component of our solution is a secure software-defined network overlay that connects all edges together. This overlay is both isolated from the underlying local network as well as from the internet. And so what that gives you is the ability to say, this port and service resource on this asset in this site can talk to this other asset in this other site in this other zone granularly only on this port and at this time. So you get granular asset isolation, various different OSI layer access controls, and end-to-end remote management without ever having a packet that leaks onto the local network or onto the public internet. So it's super powerful.
Yeah, and to add to what Ryan was just saying, it essentially, when we think about the secure overlay, essentially what it is that is your segmentation methodology within the Byos environment. So that's going to facilitate, and we'll talk a little bit more about this in a few minutes, but that's going to facilitate local addressing inside the microsegment itself. That's going to facilitate the separation or joining of different edges and ultimately the assets attached to them. And that's going to determine who can talk to who through that overlay network or within that overlay network. So if you think about conceptually traditional networking nomenclature and verbiage, if you think about VLANs, for example, or you think about routing, you think about subnets, this is quite literally where that sort of segmentation will take place. So you've got multiple zones with multiple edges within each zone, and you can quite literally, with a simple point and click, determine whether or not two edges can communicate with each other from different zones within that overlay, and whether or not the assets attached to those edges can communicate with each other. And if so, which port and protocol or which resource can they use to communicate? So it's really everything that you think of with traditional networking is there. It's all baked in. It's just a lot easier, it's a lot stronger, and it's a lot more powerful.
Yeah, that's great. And so let's actually dive into some of those terms that we were just using, right? So edges, those are the Byos Secure Edge technology, either our gateway edge form factor or our endpoint edge form factor. The assets, those are the machines that are connected to Byos that are within the protected microsegment. Now, what happens is policy groups are what edges are assigned to. So, policy group 2 on the screen has 2 edges that belong to it. The policy groups determine the internal, the external networking settings, the blocking and filtering rules, and ultimately the zone membership. Like what Jim said, zones are layer 3 logical segmentation within the biosecure lobby overlay that have a number of different access controls, inbound access, outbound access, and then access for secure lobby guests. And secure lobby guests are layer 2 tunneled connections into the biosecure lobby.